Imagine this. You check your account after a really good month. The numbers look great, but you feel oddly uneasy. Then the next week, there's a tiny loss, and suddenly your whole day is ruined. Same $10. Completely different emotional reaction. So what's going on there? Why does your brain treat the same money so differently? That's what we're unpacking today. Why your money choices rarely match your math, and what behavioral finance can do about it. Let's start with this idea. Your financial mind is kind of like a house with some very creative wiring. Most of the time, the lights work just fine. You flip a switch, a light goes on. No problem. But every now and then, you flip a switch in the hallway and a lamp flickers in the bedroom. That's what happens with money decisions. You swear you're making a calm, rational choice, but behind the scenes, there are invisible circuits. Your habits, your shortcuts, your old experiences, quietly rerouting your behavior. Sometimes you really are steering carefully, like a driver on a clear highway. And other times, it's more like playing a video game on instinct. You react fast, emotionally, and based on reflex, not strategy. Here's the key. Behavioral finance doesn't judge these glitches. It doesn't say, you're bad with money. Instead, it says, you're human. This is what human brains do. And once you notice where the wiring tends to misfire, you can start to rearrange the circuits a bit, so your financial autopilot stops working against you and slowly starts working for you. So what is behavioral finance really? Think of it as finally getting a user manual for that strange wiring in your mental money house. It's the field that studies how your brain actually works around money, not how it should work in a perfectly logical world. Here's the thing. Your brain runs on shortcuts, little rules of thumb. They're fantastic for things like grabbing groceries or deciding which route to drive. But those same shortcuts can quietly sabotage you when it comes to investing or long-term planning. It's like using a ruler designed for inches to measure kilometers. The ruler itself isn't broken, it's just built for a different job. In this episode, we're going to zoom in on those hidden tools, your instincts, your fears, your habits, and look at how they actually reshape what feels affordable, safe, or too risky. If traditional finance assumes we're calculators, behavioral finance assumes we're storytellers. And money? Money is one of our main plot lines. You don't just see numbers sitting in your banking app. You see security, you see status, you see guilt, you see possibility. That inner story changes how you treat every single dollar, even when the math is exactly the same. Let's talk about one of the biggest ways this shows up: mental buckets. Think about how you label your money. You might be extremely strict about never touching your emergency fund. That money is sacred. But then you get a tax refund, and suddenly it feels like fun money. It's way easier to blow it on impulse buys. Now, logically, every dollar is interchangeable, but psychologically, it really isn't. Your brain slaps sticky labels on money: bonus money, side hustle cash, found money, serious savings, and you behave differently depending on the label, not the actual value. That's one of the core insights of behavioral finance. Your labels can be more powerful than the numbers themselves. Time gets warped too. Future you becomes this vague acquaintance you keep promising to meet for coffee, and then you keep postponing. When you skip saving today, there's a quiet message under that decision. Future me will figure it out. This is called present bias. Your brain treats right now as high definition and urgent. And the future? It's blurry. It feels far away. It doesn't feel real in the same way. It's the same wiring that makes dessert tonight feel absolutely necessary. But cholesterol at 60 feels theoretical. Let that sink in for a second. The same brain that worries about tiny things today will completely discount massive things later. Risk gets weird too. Picture two weather apps. One says, very calmly, 30% chance of rain. The other shows a dramatic thunderstorm animation with lightning, big clouds, flashing icons, the whole thing. It's the same forecast, but your feelings? Totally different. The stock market works like that. A calm chart that says expected volatility feels abstract, but red numbers flashing on your screen can trigger the same bodily alarm systems your ancestors used to avoid predators. Your gut doesn't know the difference between portfolio down 15% and danger right now. And then, running in the background the whole time, there's social comparison. You're not just judging your progress against your own goals, you're also, often unconsciously, judging yourself against your peers. If your friends are bragging about crypto wins or flipping real estate, then sitting in a simple index fund can feel like losing, even if, on paper, you're actually on a safer, more reliable path. It's like being on a smooth airplane flight, buckled in and safe, while scrolling Instagram and seeing skydivers jumping out of planes. Suddenly, cruising altitude feels boring instead of comforting. So here's where behavioral finance gets really useful. It doesn't just give cute names to these glitches, it invites you to actually notice your own patterns. Where do you relabel money? When does future you get completely ignored? What specific signals send you into storm mode with your investments or your spending? Those answers become the raw material for your own financial guardrails. Here's a helpful way to picture it. Think of your financial habits like the layout of your kitchen. If cookies live on the counter and vegetables are hiding in the back of the fridge, you don't really decide to snack on cookies. You just kind of drift into it. Money works exactly the same way. If the shopping app is right there on your home screen, one tap away, and your savings account is buried 3 taps deep in some folder, you've already tilted the game against yourself. Behavioral finance is about rearranging those cabinets. You create what I'll call friction bumps in front of the behaviors you want less of, and smoother paths for the behaviors you want more of. For example, you might add a 24-hour rule for purchases over a certain amount. You see something you want? You can still buy it, but it has to survive one sleep cycle. Or you reverse it for good behavior. You set up automatic transfers that sweep money into savings before you even see it, like a dishwasher that quietly runs in the background while you're doing something else. You can also borrow something from pilots, checklists. Before you move money, you run through a tiny ritual. What's the goal here? What's the time frame? What emotion am I feeling right now? That little pause is not fluff. It's the moment where your reflexive story meets your considered plan. As more of these behavioral tools spread into everyday apps and financial products, your money decisions can start to feel less like wrestling a wild animal and more like learning to surf. You're not trying to stop every emotional wave, you're learning how to ride them. You'll have dashboards, apps, maybe even advisors that translate your quirks into custom guardrails for your money. Your role shifts from lone hero to co-pilot. You choose the destination, you set the constraints, and then you let carefully designed systems steer you away from cliffs you can't always see in the moment. The big idea is this: you don't need a whole new personality to handle money well. You just need better scaffolding around the personality you already have. So think of your finances like a garden. You choose what to plant, your goals, your priorities. But the fences, the timers, the trellises, those are your systems. They keep the growth aimed upward instead of spreading randomly. Tiny design tweaks, where your accounts live, when choices appear, which numbers you see first, quietly turn your default path into the path that's actually aligned with what you want. All right, let's land this with a clear recap and a simple action plan. So here's what we covered today. First, Your brain has some quirky wiring around money. You're not a calculator, you're a storyteller. Labels like emergency fund or found money, your feelings about future you, and your reactions to risk all shape your choices, often more than the actual dollars do. Second, those patterns are predictable. Things like mental buckets, present bias, and emotional reactions to market swings aren't personal failures, they're human defaults. Once you can spot them in yourself, you can start to work with them instead of fighting against them. Third, design beats willpower. The way your financial kitchen is set up, what's easy, what's hard, what's visible, has a huge impact on your behavior. Guardrails, friction bumps, checklists, and automation can quietly push you toward better decisions, even on days when your willpower is running low. So what can you do with all of this, starting this week? Here's your action plan. Number 1, take a few minutes to write down the key ideas that stood out to you from this episode about behavioral finance, your brain on money. Just getting it out of your head and onto paper, or into your notes app, makes it easier to remember and easier to act on. Number 2, spot one specific area in your own life where this shows up right now. Maybe it's how you treat bonus money. Maybe it's how often you check your investments. Maybe it's the way you keep promising future you that you'll start saving later. Just pick one. Number 3, take one small action this week to redesign that area. Not a big life overhaul, just a tiny concrete step. Move an app off your home screen. Set up one automatic transfer. Try a 24-hour pause on bigger purchases. If you do only those 3 things, you've turned this episode from interesting information into real progress. You don't have to out-argue your brain. You just have to understand how it works around money and build simple systems that nudge it in the direction you actually want to go. That's your brain on money. And now you're not just reacting to it, you're starting to design around it.